Testing, testing.
But what I'll do is, I mean, I don't have a problem with moving it or whatever, or talking in it, but...
Just try to speak into it as much as you can, so the
Sure.
live can hear you.
I will make you number one.
I'm going to move it right now.
You can move
to
it.
do it,
and
an
I
introduction.
can always move it.
Okay. All right, we're going to get started with the Opperman Lecture shortly, so I invite all of those that are in the lobby to move into the chairs. We have several chairs here. All the back seats are taken. You have to get here early for the back chairs. There's plenty of seats over here. I'm going to call him out. I'm just going to tease him a little bit. Okay, Joel Allen and Don Messer and George Bittner, if you could join us in the seats. I have to call. Yes. We know the ones that like to talk. Yes. There's several seats up here. So good morning and welcome to the 2024 Opperman Distinguished Alumni Lecture. My name is Kitty Allen and I serve as the Vice President for Institutional Advancement. The Opperman Lecture is funded through an endowment gift from the late Dwight D. Opperman, who attended Dakota Wesleyan University in 1947 and 1948. Mr. Opperman earned a law degree from Drake University in Des Moines, Iowa. Drake also has an Opperman Lecture and an Opperman Scholarship, which Dakota Wesleyan graduates have received. Opperman was CEO of West Publishing House of St. Paul, Minnesota, where under his leadership, the company moved into technology products with the creation of the Westlaw Legal Database. The Opperman Distinguished Alumni Lectureship was created to expose current DWU students to alumni who have found success in their professions. This year, it is my pleasure to welcome back John Kremelmeyer, a member of the class of 1970 who has ascended into the heights of sports, beginning as a high school coach and ending a storied career coaching Olympians and Paralympians to the medal stand. John's story is, of course, inspiring for its uniqueness. I don't know about you, but I don't know many Olympic coaches. Just John. But John's story is about much more. It's about the coincidences that led him to DWU, that inspired him to compete as a wrestler, to pursue cross-country skiing as a sport, and take his knowledge all the way to places like Lillehammer, Salt Lake City, and Albertville. It's about taking on the unique challenges of coaching sight-impaired and other abled athletes. And it's about his own challenges coping with a life-altering health crisis that gave him a clearer vision of what it means to be a Paralympian, more than any training course of partnership could ever provide. John's faith, family, and friends have meant everything to him as he has recovered. John and his wife Claudia live in Colorado, and they have 3 children, Gabe, Josh, Allie, and 6 grandchildren. So please join me in welcoming the Opperman Lecture, John Kremmelmeyer.
That's good. What an intro. My goodness. I kind of feel like the pressure is on right now. First of all, I just want to say how grateful I am to be here and to be welcomed back into the Dakota Wesleyan community. Last night, I attended the Legacy Banquet, and what really stood out to me was how much people care here. There's a term that I learned in coaching and in teaching. And by the way, I'm a retired teacher, and I noticed that everybody sits in the back. And there was a time where I'd say, okay, come on up, come on up. But anyway, the quote that I learned as being a coach and also being a teacher was, it's not how much you know, but how much you care. Meaning that as a teacher or as a coach, you can go ahead and just tell them all kinds of technical things. But the bottom line is, if your athlete or your student realizes that you don't care about them, then that has a bigger impact than you telling them what you know. So it's so important to let people know that you care, and that's what I witnessed last night. Looking around the crowd and just the speeches that were given. People very, very much care about this place, and I totally understand, because Dakota Wesleyan is a sense of community, and that is what I felt when I showed up middle of the winter, January, second semester, 1968, with this big blue down coat on that no one recognized what down was back then, and heads turned. And then I was definitely embraced by the faculty and by students, and my roommate of still 60 some odd years or close to it, Dave Backlund, and Danelle actually kind of lived with us as well. There's a little more truth to that. But I just want to say thank you for having me, and I also would rather this not necessarily be a lecture. I would rather it be a discussion. So if you have a question in the middle of my talk, just raise your hand, and I will acknowledge you. And I might also remind you, as I get older, my hearing is not so good. So Kitty will help me out in the translation if I'm not able to hear what you have to say. So the story. The story really isn't so much about me. I'll go ahead and tell you the story. About 3 years ago, I was in the hospital, and due to, which I didn't know, I had an aneurysm, and I always thought aneurysms took place in your heart and in your head, but I had an aneurysm behind my kneecap, and the surgeon told me that I would never known that. What I felt was my foot would get really hot. It felt hot, and it also felt like I had a rock in my shoe. And I was coaching the local kids program, and as soon as I would take off my ski boot, it would go away. And I had previously skied in Biterstolen at World Masters Championship for age group, and I had a fairly decent result, and I thought, well, maybe Italy's next year, I'll train for that. So I was in pretty good condition, and there's a mountain called Mount Royal, and it's pretty steep, and I was hiking that probably 3 times a week, and my foot would again get hot, and I'd take my shoe off, everything was fine. So I did go to the doctor, and they said, well, you have nerve pain, and I agreed. But I really didn't pursue it any further than that. So one evening, about 5 o'clock, I felt something wrong. And my wife said, "You need to go to the ER." And I said, "I'll go in the morning." That's a mistake. So I walked in the ER the next morning, and the doctor looked at my foot, and he goes, "You have a blood clot in your foot." And he said, "You're doing Flight for Life, Denver, right now." I said, "Seriously?" And he said, "Yeah." So on the gurney, I'm looking down, I'm watching people climb Torreys and Grays. Those are two 14,000-foot peaks, and we're flying right through them. And I know I know where I am, and watching, and very lucid. We land, the surgeon comes out, and he goes, "You're going to lose your leg." And I knew enough from coaching the Paralympic team that if you lose it below the knee, it's much better than above. So I made the comment, save as much as you can. And he used the word hip disarticulation. And I'm going, I didn't even know what that meant. So anyway, boom, they tried, they attempted. I think it was 6 surgeries in 8 days. I ended up with basically no femur. So I just have a hip. So that's the story. But so much the story, it's the effect of the story. Not only on me, but also those people that are close to me, family, friends, and so on. The effects are physical and they're mental. The physical things for me is I'm not really able to carry anything. It's really hard to go to the grocery store and carry out a sack of groceries. So unfortunately, you need help. I'm not into the scooter yet. Okay, the ones that exist, I'm just not ready for that. I'm not able to, I live in snow country. I'm not able to shovel snow. I'm just, and also then I'm not able, and I don't use the word can't, or I try not to. I'm not able to do the things that I used to do in the same fashion. I love to hike. I love to climb. I love to fly fish. I love to ski. I love to walk, and I'm not able to do that the way I used to do. So mentally, it's a challenge. It takes me forever to do something. I mean, just to get up and go to the car, or get up in the middle of the night, you go to the bathroom, whatever, grab your crutches, find out where you're going. Dark. I mean, it just takes longer to do everything. So there's a term that I've picked up again with coaching. It's called perceived effort. What is the perceived effort to do something? And I think we all have that wonderment when you go, "Oh my gosh, I have to go do that. That's going to take me." Anyway, perceived effort. And my perceived effort is like, all right, we'll try that. All right, good. All right. That's all right. All right. Working. I can hold it.
Can you hold it?
Sure. Does that work? Can you hear me? Yeah. All right. Perceived effort. We'll back up to that. No? How about now? Better?
Okay.
All right. Back to perceived effort. This effort is quite a bit, so you understand what we're going through. But the thing with perceived effort is that you basically just need to get up and do it. Whether it's going to the library, studying for a test, because you know it's going to take time and it's going to take effort, you need to do it. You need to say, "Oh my gosh," be aware of that perceived effort. I'm going to get up, I'm going to get it done. A former athlete of mine on the Paralympic teams, I refer to him a lot because he's been really supportive to me. His name is One Arm Willie. If you don't have anything to do, Google one-arm Willie. His name's Willie Stewart. Lost his arm in a construction accident, remodeling the roof or reconstructing the roof of the Watergate building right out of high school. He was Virginia State champ, got a full ride scholarship to the University of Maryland, lost his arm out of high school, never went to school, never went to college, became extremely depressed, and has turned into basically a world-renowned athlete. And right now he's training for the Kona Ironman. This guy swims with one arm, ocean swims. And that's what he does. I mean, that's his, talk about perceived effort. He's the one that gets over it. So he called me on the phone, and he just said, hey, I want you to know you're on your own time. And what that means is that it does take me longer to do things, and so I'm on my own time. But the upside is maybe I was moving too fast anyway. Maybe we all need just to take time to take a moment and just go slower and realize what we have right now at this moment. So the other thing that I struggle with is, have I accepted this loss? And I will say, not really. I haven't. I'll be truthful. It's a struggle. I look up, I look down, even this morning, I look down, I look down, I go, oh my gosh, I don't have a leg. How am I going to go? How am I going to do today? How am I going to be? So it's something to also think about is like, how are you going to be today? Because you have a choice. You know, you can have a choice to be grumpy or angry or frustrated, or you also have a choice to maybe be happy and to look people in the eye and acknowledge them. Which brings me to the point is, do people look at me differently? And the answer is yes. I've never experienced that before, but having one leg and in a group of people, going to a grocery store, walking down the street at home, people that know me, it's a little bit different, but people who don't give me a lot of room. For some unknown reason, again, it might be my perception, but people move out of the way, okay? The other thing I noticed, too, is that very few adults will actually look me in the eye and acknowledge me. I'm an eye guy. I like to look people in the eye and acknowledge them. And most people will see me coming, and they'll go this way. So I knew that would probably take place because in my experience with Paralympic athletes, they experience the same thing, especially if you're in a wheelchair. I talked to some students the other day, and I said that there's one thing that you remember from me being here is that when you leave, if you see someone that is in a wheelchair or see someone that's missing an arm or a leg, someone that looks different, Down syndrome, cerebral palsy, whatever it is, look them in the eye and say hello. You don't have to carry on a conversation, but just acknowledge them the same way you would your friend. It's so important, especially with people with disabilities, to just let them know that they really are part of this society and that they are important people. So that is one thing that I've experienced, and I have experienced, I won't go into the details of it, but I have been in crowds where I felt like I didn't belong. And I've never in my life, being an athlete, being a student, being a teacher, I never felt that before. But I felt like, wow, no one would acknowledge me, no one would look me in the eye, and I felt, wow, this is an awkward feeling. And they were adults. On the other hand, children are curious, and some are very curious and will come up and ask. Some are frightened, depending on the age. They look and they go, there's something wrong with that guy. But I was at a park last summer, and this little girl came up to me, and she goes, where's your leg? And I said, I lost it. And then she goes, where'd you lose it? And I said, you know, I don't know, but I can't find it. And and that was all she needed. That's all she needed. Oh, well, okay, well, you know, bye, see you later. So when I think of that, there's so many different responses that can take place with people with disabilities and whatever. So many of them are good, and some of them are kind of awkward. So thinking of that, I'll kind of reflect a little bit. Do I get frustrated? I do, because things take time. Do I get depressed? I had to look that up. I wasn't sure. I wanted to make sure that I knew what the definition of depression was. I mean, I know it exists, and so I wanted to make sure. So I looked it up in the dictionary, an actual dictionary. And I would say, yes, I do get depressed, but not every day. So I would admit that there is a tinge of depression, and I need to acknowledge that and be aware of that. Do I get angry? I do get angry, but I'm not angry at other people. I'm just, I think, more angry about my situation. It's like, dang. Unfortunately, I've noticed that I've lost patience. I used to be a pretty patient guy, and I don't know that I am anymore. And what I noticed is that oftentimes, especially my wife, I feel impatient, and primarily because she's doing things that I should be doing or whatever, and I'm frustrated, but I actually acknowledge her and say, I'm sorry if I feel like I'm impatient with you today, because I know that I am. I can tell that I am, and I'll really try not to be that way. So patience is one of those things that I need to learn again how to be. And then, but again, this situation, it's not so much about me, it's how we handle it. There's a term that I picked up in sport as well. It's not what happens to me, but how I handle it determines my well-being. I have no idea who coined that phrase, but it's true. It's not what happens to you, but how you handle it. And so, how do you handle something like this? Good question. I had no idea how to handle it, and those ways have kind of floated into my life, kind of somewhat haphazardly. So, in order, the way I've learned to handle this situation, laying in the hospital, and well, I forgot to mention, after I lost my leg, I went back home, and I was doing fairly well. And one day, I could not write my name. I was trying to write a check, believe it or not, and I couldn't write it. I'm going, this is strange. Why can't I write my name? I know how to do that. The next morning, I couldn't move, and my son was there, and we went back to the ER, back to Denver, Flight for Life, respiratory failure. So when I was in the hospital, I died, and they were basically ready to bring me back. And so again, when I'm laying in the hospital and not doing well, and I'm looking up, and it was a Catholic hospital, and there's a crucifix above every door in the hospital. So I'm laying there, and at about 3 in the morning, I mean, I don't know, you can't sleep, and you can't turn over, and on and on and on. And I looked up, and I looked at the crucifix, and all of a sudden I just said, well, God, it's you and me. What do you think? How's it going? And start carrying on a conversation. And I found myself going, how about one more day? Can you allow that? Can you just give me one more day? And I did that for about a week. And then all of a sudden it dawned on me that I was asking God instead of saying, thank you for that day that I had, and thank you for this day right now. Thank you. And then so I changed my tune. And to be honest with you, about 2 months ago, I changed my tune again. And now when I wake up in the middle of the night, which I do frequently, I try to recall my situation laying on my back, looking up, and I said, God, thank you for this breath. Thank you for this moment. I really appreciate it. Oh, and take care of my family too, if you wouldn't mind. Have a good evening, Amen. So that is one way that helps me, I will say, cope. Another way comes from a coaching example. So I'm going to give my high sign to way in the back to flash up that slide. Are you back there? Hello? Yeah, there you go. So here we go. All right, so when you can read that, would you just yell out what you read? It's a 3-letter word. See it? Fly. Okay. Don't be embarrassed if you can't read it. It took me forever to figure it out years ago. Okay. Well, once you see it, it will hit you right square in the forehead. So here's the story, and I'll give you a little hint, but then I'll move on. That little arrow, that's upside down arrow, that's the center of a Y. And over here, if you look in the first part, that little bump, that's an F, and then the L. So here's the story behind this. And this goes with sports, if you have any athletes in there, and also goes with people. Every day we are conditioned, okay? We're conditioned by words, pictures, feelings, and since a small child, you have been taught to read black on white. You've never been taught to read between the lines. You've never been taught to read the white. And that's what this is. And again, it's a matter of conditioning. And if you are able to determine behavior or something that you feel that you need to change, it's a matter of repetition. Okay? So what this means is in sport, let's say that you have a tendency to get really nervous before a particular event, and it actually affects your performance. So if that's a situation, maybe as an athlete, what you do is you write down on a card. You don't share it. You write it down, and you write down what you want. It's like me to be really calm before I go out to play. That's me. And you say that, and you remind yourself of that with maybe a 3x5 card in the visor of your car, in your notebook, in your iPad. Maybe you have it on a screen, but you see that, and you repeat it, and you say it to yourself. Eventually, that conditioning becomes you. Well, one morning, I woke up, I looked down, I went, dang, I don't have a leg, and was not happy with it. And I happened to look over, and I remembered this from a coaches symposium in Marquette, Michigan, years ago. And so I started repeating and writing down when I wake up every morning, it's like me to be the happiest guy on one leg. It's like me to be the kindest guy on one leg. That's what I do every morning. So that's another way that I am able to face the challenge of my situation. It's like me to be a certain way. It's like me to be, and I will tell you this, grateful to be in front of you and grateful to be here. It's like me to be that way. So that's another way. I have a couple others. One former student of mine in 7th grade named John Zedetlik. Parents grew up in Minnesota, and he went on to ski with the U.S. ski team. He was a Nordic combined, which is cross-country skiing and jumping. And he went on after he graduated from high school, went to UVM in Vermont, skied for them, and then came back to Colorado. And I was coaching the disabled team or Paralympic team, and he came on as an assistant coach. An amazing guy. Considerably, well, I won't say considerably, but he'd be in his 50s right now, late 50s. Well, about 7-8 years ago, Zeke was diagnosed with cancer, lung cancer. never smoked a day in his life, never put anything in his lungs that was not healthy. And no one could determine why, but anyway, he went through the whole thing. Radiation, they radiated him so much in his chest that his back turned brown. I mean, it was on and on and on, and chemotherapy. Bottom line is Zeke passed away. And if Zeke were here right now and a doctor stood in front of him and said, okay, Zeke, you got a choice. We're going to go ahead and continue on with the treatment that we've been giving you with radiation and so on, and you'll probably die, maybe 4 or 5 months. Or we're going to cut your leg off, and you're going to live. What's your choice? You'd say, cut my leg off right now. Let's do it. And I'm sure that you've all experienced people in your life the same way. If they were given a choice to lose an arm or a leg, instead of dying, they would choose to lose that arm or leg. So I think about that. And kind of the last 2 or 3 ways is I don't listen to it every morning, but I try. I have an app on my iPad called Insight Timer. It's a guided meditation, morning meditation normally of how are you going to be today, and welcome yourself and love yourself and be happy and grateful for this day. And I do that. The last thing is kind of counseling. I've never gone to counseling. I need to go to counseling, and I will. I just haven't done it yet. I'm not anti-counseling. I think it's wonderful. And I plan to do that because I need to talk. I need to let a counselor know how I feel and what's going on. And I believe that I will get guidance on how to make my life better through counseling. So I will do that. And then lastly, I will revert back to my one-arm Willie. So when I'm in the hospital, he called me up and he said, oh, by the way, you're on the team now. He said, I'm sorry that you're on the team, but you are. And I said, yeah, thanks, Willie. I said, to be honest with you, I'm actually proud to be on your team now. It's kind of funny because he's missing an arm and I'm missing a leg. So when we get together, we go, yeah, well, we're missing an arm and a leg. And anyway, so during our conversation, he kind of got quiet and he goes, they used to call me JK because of initials and stuff. He goes, JK, I want you to know you're not fighting for your life. It's not about you. And I kind of take a double take on that one, and he goes, what you're fighting for is to wake up each morning, give Claudia, my wife, give her a hug, tell her you love her, hug your kids, tell them you love them, hug your grandkids, tell them you love them. And then when you see people you know that you care about, look them in the eye and tell them you love them. Said, that's what you're fighting for. So with that said, and I've told that story, I don't know how many times, hundreds of times. And a little caveat to that, I saw Willie not too long ago, and I said, Willie, do you know how many times I've told that story? And he said, no. And I said, I can't even tell you, hundreds. He goes, you know how many times I've told it? And I said, no. He goes, once. And I went, oh, yeah. Like, oh my gosh, Willie. So with that said, I just want to let you guys all know that I'm grateful, I care about you, and I love you. And I think it's really important for we as people to let others know that we love them and actually tell them, because it's important to say it now, because there may be a time where you don't have that opportunity. So there you go. How about that? 25 minutes. Thank you. What would my change in my coaching style? From losing my leg? Yeah, good question. I'll have to go back. I'll have to go back to what I said earlier, and I don't know that it would be a change. I think it would maybe be more of an awareness to make sure that I let people know that I care about them, and that and I am still coaching, and it's interesting because it's middle school kids. It's called the DWU program with Team Summit, and after that they look at me, but I like to do it because I want them to see me in a different fashion, and I've created games, like towing me. Okay, so I hook on a tether, and I'm on what's called a sit ski. It's like attaching skis to a chair. And so I come up with games and have them ski away and tow me so I get a ride, okay? So I think just an awareness of I guess if I was going to change, it would be to make that awareness to them that people with disabilities can do it. That's the other thing. I think oftentimes, so I went on a 30-mile, it's called a gravel ride, bicycle, and but I can ride a bike. Okay, I was a little worried about balance, and it was a gravel ride, and there was a pitch that was about a 9% kill, and I was trying to ride up, and I kind of looked strange. I'm riding with one leg, and I'm going, and the rear tire spun out. And anyway, bottom line, I got caught at the top of the pedal, and I went backwards instead of forwards, so I'm like balanced, and boom, fell over. I didn't get hurt, and I wasn't going fast, but I fell over, and it was like 30 people. Oh my gosh, are you all right? You're right. And the answer is yes, and I think it's really important that people care. Sometimes it's a little bit over the board. So I guess I would say too on that is that I have difficulty asking for help, but I really appreciate when people offer, and I'll just say thank you, but I'm okay. And that's kind of what happened there. I was going, thank you guys, I'm fine, and I went from there. But to answer your question, I think that I would pretty much remain the same, but try to bring my awareness more toward them, and my situation. But thank you. Appreciate that. Any other thoughts? Yeah. Oh my gosh, phantom pain. It is phantom, and it is real. It's different. I have different types of phantom pain, which is strange. Like I can feel the bottom of my foot, and it's kind of hanging backwards, and I can feel my toes, but I can't wiggle them. But the phantom pain, and the explanation is that your brain still feels that there's a leg there, so it sends signals through the nerves. And sometimes it's like an electric shock, and it's like switch on, switch off. And sometimes it's the point where you go, oh, and then it's gone, and then all of a sudden, so yeah, I do get phantom pain, but like right now, I don't have it, and I don't get it often, but it spells. It goes into spells, and sometimes it's like. Yeah. And I actually warn people, like, if you see me start jerking around, I'm okay. It's just a little pain. But I think what it is, too, is being on one leg, your body compensates. So hands, being on crutches, shoulders, they get really sore and things like that. But I go to physical therapy, and not every day or whatever, like I'm kind of on a schedule, on and off, and so I go there just as maintenance and to keep things going. But no, thanks. That's a good question. I forgot about phantom pain, so if you see me jerk, you'll know what's going on. Oh no, it's real. It's real. It is. So, yes. Yes. It's the same leg that. Okay. Prosthetic. Do I have a prosthetic, or do they make a prosthetic for somebody? It's called hip disarticulation, and the answer is yes. The leg, meaning the leg. There's parts of those prosthetics. There's a foot, which is the very bottom. Then there's the leg. Okay, and then the leg is attached to a socket. Okay. In my situation, the socket, or what I would crawl into, is kind of like sliding into a 5-gallon bucket, which means that it fits up around my waist and halfway around, basically around my tail end. To make it work, you've got to throw your thrust out, but you also have to toe down to make the knee bend. Okay, and I'm not very good with it. I mean, I can do it with help with cane or something like that, but that's not the issue. The issue is, first of all, you dress the leg before you get dressed. Okay, so you got to slide it onto the prosthetic, then you got to slide it on your leg, and then obviously you got to buy pants that are about 2 times 3 big, so you can get pants around it, which is not a big deal. I can do that. I can handle that. Overalls work well. But then where are you going to go? You know, it's like, okay, well, let's see, I was going to go to the store, so you go out to the car. Well, you can't drive with it. Okay, so let's get undressed in the driveway, put it in the car. All right, I'm going to Safeway now. So I'm out in the and I have done this, but not in a Safeway parking lot. So I've got it in the back. I got the leg in the back of the car. So I pull up, open up the trunk, pull the leg out. So I'm in the parking lot we have a ranch store called Murdoch's. That's where I go to physical therapy. So I'm getting dressed out in the parking lot, and I go in, and then I come back out. So bottom line is, it's not efficient. That's a kind way to say it's not, and it's not particularly comfortable either. And I wouldn't ride in a car sitting in it or an airplane. So I'm much more ambulatory with crutches, and I do use a wheelchair around the house, and so yeah, I use a wheelchair and crutches mostly. But thank you, that's a good question. They do make them, and I've seen people walk with them, and I'm amazed how well they do. It's something. Anyway, thanks. Yeah. Unfortunately, I can't drive a stick anymore, but the answer is yes. I don't have a modified system. I use my left foot. I drive very carefully. I do not want to get pulled over and then step out of the car and have the policeman go, "Are you kidding me?" So I'm very careful. But I have heard that it's not illegal for me to drive the way I do. Okay, because I am able to control everything. Obviously, it's an automatic, and I control everything with my left foot. And then also, cruise control helps, like on the interstate. So that's what I do. Yeah, nice. Thank God. Yeah, I was really frightened to drive when I got out of the hospital, and especially in traffic. And I don't go to Denver often, but I really, really don't like driving in traffic because it's stop and go. And I just don't want to get in an accident, for sure. So actually, it's good for me because I won't get pulled over. Yeah, right. Yeah. Right. Can I come give you a hug? Thanks, Roger. Roger and I stood together in a picture at Letterman's Club. We never kind of rushed in, and they wanted it for the yearbook, and we ended up standing next to one another. And I have always admired, the handsome guy. And I'm going, I'm next to this guy. So anyway, thanks, Roger. Yeah. Any other thoughts? Well, okay, yeah. Briefly, and kind of reminded me. Well, anyway, the apparatus that I use is very primitive. It's like I say, it's like putting skis on a chair. They do have rules in the Paralympic standard of what that apparatus can be. They do not allow a whole lot of technology because, and this is coming not from the U.S., but from the International Paralympic Organization, because those countries that have better access to technology might have an advantage with equipment. Now, this is in cross-country. Alpine's a little different. So everything is rigid, and you at a certain height off the snow, and so on. Actually, I'm still involved with Paralympics with technical classifier, and we look at equipment and also how they utilize it. But to go on with that, and right now, presently, it started last week, I do Zoom meetings once a week with Cal Poly out of San Luis Obispo, California. And this group of, 5 seniors, boys, engineering students, are designing a sit ski for me. And they wondered if it should be compliant, whatever, and I said, I don't know, but I think what we're designing is something that's out of carbon fiber and something that might have a little bit of flexibility in it, so it might provide a forward motion. But they're all these young guys. Like I look in the back of the crowd, they're all like you, and they're all they have questions, and so we have met once, Zoom meeting, and I got an email last night like, okay, when are you coming back? We have questions for you. So yeah, the idea is that we are going to do that, but now there's not a manufacturer for this kind of stuff. There's one called Spokes in Motion that does make apparatus ski stuff, but mostly all athletes, even in the world, go to a fabricator and they design and build something basically out of tubing, as light as possible. So that's worldwide. I mean, and some of it is very basic. I mean, seriously, it's just a platform. It depends on the disability. If you're really a high up paralysis, you have to have support. But if you're something like me, you can get away because I can move around. So it's a little different. It totally depends on the disability. Yeah, it's Paralympic sport. Maybe you saw some of it on TV, the summer games. Those athletes are truly phenomenal. They're good, and I had the experience. The people I coached, they never thought they were disabled. Never. They were there. They were strong. I learned a lot from them. So anyway, like I say, I'm on the team now. Well, anyway, I want to thank you so much, and I am grateful not only to be here, but I'm grateful to breathe. And one other comment that I've made friends over the years with Katerina. She's from Greece. She's a child physical therapist. And when this happened, she said, hey, JK, you're not disabled. You're transforming. And I use that a lot. I'm transforming, and we're all transforming day by day. And she said, not only that, if you died, you wouldn't have been able to be here and talk to me. And so I'm fortunate to be here, and thank you so much. I really enjoy you. So have a wonderful afternoon.